Hello, everyone. Welcome back to DJ and the Zooms. I am Jay, and today is part two of my conversation with my friend Corrine. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as you enjoyed the last episode. Let's go.
I remember when I first started watching it, I the first few races, I was stressed out all day before the race started, scared that something would happen to Charles in this
Mhm.
specific case. For kind of a while, I was just stressed out that one of them would crash and something terrible would happen.
Mhm.
And that's also how I realized. So it was at all stressful, but that's also how I realized that I cared, and I really liked it.
Yeah. Well, I think too when you start going back and you look at I look at Joe's crash and I'm like, how do you get back in the car after it flips like that? Like I just it's just unreal when you start going back and then you're looking at like Romain Grosjean's with the fire and I'm just like and he's still
And
driving and
he's
I'm just
still racing. And recently, he said he'd like to get back to Formula One.
which make me a big fan at that point. I mean, like, there's just little things like that where I just obviously they're not little, but you know, so many of those events happen in Formula One,
Yeah, the
and you're
stakes are
just
so high.
the stakes are so high. It almost becomes normal. Like you just normalize that the violence is there, and you just kind of. But
Mm.
when you're new and you're looking at all these things, and you're just like, I don't know how. Yeah,
Yeah,
so the mental battle, especially, which is why I'm a huge fan of like what Lando has brought forth. Not just like with he has to deal with the media, but just the mental battle of getting in that car, and like doing what he has to do. I can't even imagine. I
yeah.
honestly can't. So,
Yeah, and it's also, you do sort of get numb to it, kind of, but here and there, you'll have these moments when you realize, oh, yeah, I remember Lando saying that, something about Monaco and the fact that each turn you take, you kind of think, I could die here. Um,
yeah.
First of all, yeah, they could, like anything could happen and it could very easily be fatal. But that's also something that I mentioned, but in last year's podcast, the one that was in French, about, I think it was Bernie Ecclestone saying something, complaining about drivers being so well paid. I think when your life is on the line, you're justified to be paid millions.
Yes, I totally agree. It's like the one sport that I agree, like getting paid millions, like is for sure. Because, like Hulkenberg has a family. He has a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so these guys like they have families, they have parents, they have siblings, and they're putting that all on the line. Yes, for something they love,
Mm-hmm.
but also for our entertainment. So the millions are justified for sure.
Exactly. Exactly. And they're making millions for the rest of the teams as well. So
Hmm.
there's that. But
Yes.
talking about the families, like I'm always so touched when you see the parents in the garage and how they hold their breath for 2 hours, the race, all race long. And it is impactful because of the human side.
Yes. I think the most underappreciated parent in the garage this season was Ollie Behrman's dad. Ollie Behrman and Esteban's family.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about the midfield that was majorly glossed over this season
Oh, yeah.
until they were like starting to do their thing, but seeing Ollie's dad in there, seeing Esteban's dad in there, like it's just so heartwarming to like
Yeah.
see that they're like supporting their children. So, and I know not a lot of like kids have that, that love and that care. And I think it's something that you had mentioned about um the success of drivers. I think there's this stigma, right, that like you need harsh parents that push you, and what we saw this season was that no, you can be successful and have very loving, caring, nurturing parents.
You can be loved unconditionally and still succeed.
Correct. And so there's no need to be throwing helmets at your child to get them to succeed.
Exactly.
And so and I think seeing that narrative shift in how that particular person now is a dad and like seeing how he's like, no, keep my daughters away from racing type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sitting here going like, you go, bro. Like,
Exactly.
but being able to see like supportive, nurturing parents, I mean, really, truly, do not have to yell and beat your children for them to be the best in the world.
Here, here.
So,
The last thing that I wanted to ask you about, and this is going to be a
yes,
complete shift in tone, is what do you think about Cadillac?
girl, I am okay. Are we allowed to get political? Because I'm about to get political. I am
Let's go.
so flipping excited, and this is my reason why.
Okay.
The climate and media from the far right now is that illegal immigrants are not of value to this country. They want them to come legally, and even that, like, apparently means squat with the raids that happen and how they happen. I love Sergio Perez. I've loved him. I think he was mistreated and he was the scapegoat for really helmets decision making.
Mm-hmm.
To see a Mexican driver in an American car and like what that means to me as someone who's part Latina, also who is an American, that's like huge. And so I understand the pushback, kinda. I'm a bit like sports change, sports change and grow. Like adding two more cars to the grid, really, is that going to affect you as a spectator,
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And I'm really excited to see Valtteri on the track again because I did not get to like experience that in live time. So now I get to, and he's just such a personality.
Yeah.
So he definitely fits the American like marketing
Mm.
brand for sure. But I think the symbol that is Sergio Perez is kind of huge over here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ride that wave so hard, and people are gonna be real sick of me over here real fast. So and it's fine.
Yep. It's their problem.
It really is. And I do think that was a little bit intentional, I'm not gonna lie. So I do think there was some intentional choosing in that.
Hmm. There could be. There could, and it would be great if it were the case.
Yes. I'm all for like that like passive aggressive protest.
Yeah.
Um and there's a huge Mexican culture here in Texas specifically, but also in California and in the southern states.
Mm-hmm.
So Sergio already had a huge fan base out here. I did see a lot of the negative this past year in Mexico, and I was actually really kind of honestly I was shocked by just the treatment of other drivers and whatnot. The booing and the chant this season was just uncalled for.
Mm.
Um, but it will be great to see him on his home track again.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And it's. I hadn't thought about that, but I agree with you. The symbol is really nice.
As much as I like critique my country, I am American through and through, and I do like Haas, I do, but they're not the same as Cadillac as a symbol in this
Of
country.
course, because Cadillac is renowned. Like
Yes.
everybody knows about Cadillac. Even us in Europe, it does have more of a '60s sort of vibe to us.
Yeah.
But everybody knows about it, and everybody knows it's from America.
Mhm.
Whereas Haas, it's Gene Haas, but it's not a known brand of cars to begin with,
Right.
so it doesn't have the same impact, obviously.
Yes. And I do think the thing with Cadillac is it does carry like an elite status. So I do think it translates well into Formula 1. Yes, I think I was thinking about like the Americanization of Formula 1, and I
Hmm.
do think Cadillac does bring a lot of that aspect in. Whether that's intentional or not, I don't know.
I think
I
it is.
think it's yeah. I mean, well, when we're seeing it with Apple, right? Acquiring the rights to broadcast Formula 1. And so I even think of like the way the driver like not interviews, but like the whole like games like that they have to do, and like just like the interviewing process that they have to do with
Mm-hmm.
different influencers and whatnot. Yes, it's fun. It's fun to watch your favorite influencer interview these drivers, but I'm just kind of like sitting here going like, it's almost like we're treating them like celebrities though, like
Yeah.
as if it's from Hollywood. And so now I'm seeing this shift in like the Americanization of Formula One, which I think we've discussed in our group about the lack of carefree nature that has left
Yeah.
Formula One. And I think a lot of people would be like, oh, it's because Daniel left. But I think
It's bigger than that.
it is. And, you know, because Carlos is a carefree guy. He's a goof. He can be a goof too. Lando used to be goofy. Max used to be goofy as well. So I do think it's a bit deeper than that.
It is. It's getting more and more PRE.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it has to do more with audiences. Um, like the reaction to Kimi Antonelli and how he was
Mm-hmm.
cyberbullied, and I think that's the same thing for Lando. Definitely, Carlos. I don't know. Max very probably has to do with that as well. The fact that whatever they do, they because Formula One is getting bigger and bigger, and also probably because it's getting bigger in the US, the audience, uh, the more people you have, the more bad people you're going to have. And
Mm,
so they get, I think, harassed online, and they have to more and more lean on the side of caution. And so they can't let go as much as they used to because the consequences are too difficult to face.
yeah, definitely. Which is really unfortunate because those old interviews that you go back and watch, you know, like they're just so fun, you know, and
Yeah.
there's nothing really like that anymore. I think the like desire is there to be that carefree again. I think Valtteri tries really hard, which I think will be a huge asset into bringing Cadillac to the forefront. I think this is a good year for Cadillac to come on the scene because everyone will have a new car. It will be an equal playing field.
Yes.
So I am very interested to see like how competitive they will be. But I will be team Sergio for sure. So I want him to succeed because I think there is a group of people that did not give him the opportunity.
We can
No,
say it.
I'm not.
Red Bull.
Yeah, Red Bull. Okay, Red Bull. I'm talking to you specifically.
But
You
not
did him
anymore
dirty.
because we love Laurent Mekies on this podcast. So
We do. We no, and I think that's the thing. So you look at when Laurent came in and what he did, and then I was so excited to see Helmet go because it's like seeing the evil
yep.
be stripped out. And so I'm like, okay, do Joss next, do Joss next. Like, and so like, because I just like, there's a difference, right? Like when you look at the other parents in the paddock and where they're at and like the demeanor that they contribute to not interfering with team dynamics. And then you have Joss, who is a stark like opposite in like how he moves about Red Bull paddock, how he portrays himself. And it's just one of those things that's so irking. And I just like, you have to go. Like, you have to go
Yep.
because I want Laurent to succeed. And I feel like that's the last, like, almost kind of like last bit of evil that's like lingering in there, you know? So obviously, I doubt that that will happen. But,
No, you can't push him out as long as Max is there because he's there for his son as well. We
yes,
would like him to have less of an impact with regards to the team and the professional side of it.
correct.
But I think my priority now, if we're doing a bit of cleanup
in the F1 paddock. My priority is Flavio, but this is not going to happen, unfortunately.
Well, the evil is now shifting. Supposedly. I do not want to play into rumors, but I obviously in our group have played into rumors. So, which has made me sad for Pierre, honestly. Made me
Yeah.
sad for him. And I think that's the thing about not having a like such a diehard favorite that I can't look at the whole paddock, the whole grid, and like feel for the work environment and whatnot. Because I'm just like I don't know what the culture is like working at Alpine, but I feel for them, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
I don't think Pierre lets it affect him that much. I think Pierre is really thinking it through and calculating for what he wants his career to be in the long run. It broke my heart for Jack Doohan, and it might be a little more difficult to live with for Franco because he's a kid.
yeah. And obviously we see the difference in driver development, what did not happen with Jack, and we look at what Io is doing with Ollie. I think that was the big thing that also sold me on Esteban this year because I had seen a lot of critiques where it's like, well, Ollie's gonna outperform and like best out Esteban.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did not see jealousy. We did not see maybe even like the little bit of like Esteban under that kind of like stress culture. And I think that's because what IO is building with Gene. And so I th- I think Haas did a really good job at setting a great example um, of how to build a midfield rookie. I mean, Gabby and Hulkenberg, like what? Oh my goodness, they are adorable
Yes.
together.
Oh, this is the moment where I should say I should apologize for the first episode of this podcast back in February, I think, where I said that Gabby won the lottery when it comes to the best teammate. And I had doubts when it comes to
Mm.
Ollie and Esteban because Esteban hasn't had a very good relationship with Pierre and he hasn't had a very good relationship with Alonso, who was his previous teammate. And so I thought he doesn't have a great track record. And I was scared that it wouldn't go very well for Ollie for his first full season. And I was wrong. And I'm very happy about it.
Pleasantly surprisingly. And I think too, let's recall that moment where Ollie blocked out an Alpine and
Mm.
Esteban gave that like approval. Like, you know, and I just like that older brother approval. And I was just like, I love this. I love that dynamic. And I think there's that culture where you like Esteban, I think with Alonso, he was really young
Mm.
and cocky. And I think with Pierre, I part of me has to wonder like what that culture at Alpine was doing to him. And so to see him come to Haas and just thrive
Yeah.
and
And
like
glow.
and glow, oh man, that man glows. I think the confidence that Gabrielle Bortoletto has with Nico is just that's what was needed for Jack, and I it does make me sad for him.
Yeah.
So okay, I don't know what time it was, but I do want to ask you about something real quick.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on Red Bull having a junior team and being able to shuffle these people around like dominoes while other people cannot do that? And so we're seeing Isack, just like be launched into Red Bull. We're watching these people be launched and shuffled and their careers almost seemingly ruined
Mm-hmm.
because of this. And it's because of this, like, oh well, we have a junior team in Red Bull. What are your thoughts about?
I have a lot, but none of them are fully formed. It's difficult to express, but first of all, there's obviously an issue of conflict of interests, which shouldn't be. Also, I think another problem with Red Bull and V Carbon is how much they use these people like dominoes, like pawns, and not like humans. Yeah, it affects their careers. It definitely has to affect their mental health. And it's something that I've also always criticized about Red Bull in comparison with Mercedes in particular, is how I think it's very important for a team to nurture their talent. And
Mhm.
I don't, which makes no sense because they have a junior team. So it would
Right.
be the ideal situation to really nurture your team and wait for them to acclimate to Formula One, get really comfortable with how it functions, the tracks, the races, the rhythm, blah, 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 and then get them to the bigger team and make sure that they're comfortable and maybe coddle them a little bit.
Mhm.
And they don't do that at all. And I think
Mhm.
it's a real problem. It only suits Max because Max unfortunately was never used to that type of behavior. So he doesn't need it, but other people I think do and will
Mhm.
only thrive if handled properly. It's a shame that Red Bull doesn't take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah. Do we think Isack will succeed? I know, right?
He's my baby.
Oh
I
my
want him to
goodness.
be world champion, and
Yes.
I'm really hoping, but I have hope because Laurent is now at Red Bull, and I
Mhm.
think things are shifting at the moment in Red Bull. They're restructuring and maybe, hopefully, finding a new rhythm and a new way of functioning that will allow all of their drivers to do well and not only Max
Mhm.
Verstappen.
Yes. Here for it. And hopefully he's like the one helping, like when Max leaves, that's it, right? And if you haven't developed anyone else, because when you listen to Max in interviews, it sounds like he honestly could walk away from the sport whenever he wants to. And so it's like, is Red Bull prepared for this man to leave?
Mhm. They weren't, and I think they are preparing
We're
now.
seeing the tides change, which is such a fun time to be a fan. Like we're what an era to be a fan and watching the tides change and living in an era of Sparkles,
Yeah.
the unicorn, like
Hmm.
that whole kind of like having just like to live in an era where that is kind of like, oh, this is what's helping. And then I think to the detriment then also watching an era where Ferrari is struggling and being on like the sad, portion of that. I just think it's such a great time to be a fan.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
Yes, seriously.
I don't think it's something I've mentioned in the group chat, but I fairly regularly in my life stop and think how lucky I am to be alive at the same time as Louis Tomlinson. And now I get to also be alive at the same time as all this is happening in Formula One. How cool
Yes.
is that?
I know, and just to, like I mean, you live in France, I live in America, and, like, we're having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
about it, and just to be able to, like, have these dialogues and whatnot, like, our parents wouldn't have been able to do that, so, I think it's really exciting for sure, and I think it's so fun to be a part of a sport that is working like, you're seeing it work towards betterment,
Yeah.
um, and improving, and I love that, and, like, seeing what Susie Wolf is doing and, like, being alive to watch that,
Yeah.
it's just unreal.
It gives you hope for kind of everything else in the world as well.
Yeah, because if you're watching a group of international like, it's an international sport, it truly is, and so and again, there's nothing like it. Like
Hmm.
watching major like countries be represented on this grid. And I think too, like learning about like where all the mechanics come from and like just it truly is international. So
Hmm.
I do love that.
And you mentioned the political climate in the US. And this is really quickly because we've been recording for an hour and which is
You're gonna
great,
have
and I have no problem with that, but I have
you're
to
gonna
edit it
have more
afterwards.
content than what you're gonna do with.
So maybe I'll do 2 episodes. I don't know. And so you mentioned the importance of Checo Perez in this context. Not exactly the same, not at all the same, but it's sort of mirroring kind of thing that we may have here in France is with, how do I say that without sounding like a terrible white person? After the Second World War, we called in a lot of people from the countries in the north of Africa that we had invaded to
Mm.
help us rebuild our country. And now that the country is rebuilt, a lot of people would very much like it if the people that we called in who have made their lives and their families here could kindly go back to wherever their ancestors came from, because that was a long time ago. And a lot of those people are from Algeria. And my ex is also from Algeria. And Isack has Algerian origins,
Mhm,
which is also why he matters so much to me.
mm,
And I'm so proud that he's the very first Formula One driver of Algerian descent. And he's doing so well. And hearing him talk in interviews, he sounds so down to earth, so conscious of everything that he does and the way that he's doing it. And I cannot wait to see him thrive, which is
mhm.
why Red Bull, my boy, better thrive.
That's right. That's right. So I didn't really know a lot about the rookies. I knew about Ollie coming in
Hmm.
because of him racing for Carlos. But when Isak came in and had his first race in Australia and the comments that were received, and as a parent, watching Helmet give these comments to this young boy, and I just so glad to watch him put his head down and like grind out,
Yeah.
but now that you've provided more history, I'm really excited to watch him flourish. And I think that's also another reason why add 2 more cars, add 2 more drivers so
Hmm.
that we can have an opportunity to add more intentional diversity to the grid, and it's not necessarily just about skin color. Like it's not just that. It's about representing different countries and giving the opportunity for these different descents to have an opportunity. And Lewis has heralded this for a while. Put a race back in Africa. Like if we're
Yeah.
truly international, put a race in Africa. And I really don't see a reason why we should not do that.
Hmm.
So I think now after even listening to you, I'm like, oh man, like it just makes you want to root for him even harder.
Yeah.
Want him to
100%.
succeed.
Hmm.
And I love seeing more French representation. I think it's so fun. I think growing up, when you watch soccer, football, you do get a lot of Anglo representation. And
Hmm.
so to come into the sport and to see Italian and French and just Monegasque and whatnot, it's really, it's also a cultural like lesson. And so
Hmm.
my son, we do homeschool here, but for him then to learn about these drivers and about where they're from, he knows that Max Verstappen is Dutch.
Hmm.
And what child knows the Dutch national anthem,
Exactly.
like mine does. And so it's just one of those things where it's like this sport has given me an opportunity, given my husband an opportunity to teach my child about the world that is like out there.
Yeah.
And really helped shape him into like learning these are people. So it's really cool.
It is. Well, on those great words, thank you very much for
Yeah,
joining me
thanks.
today. I had like a great time talking to you. I'm so happy that we did.
Ooh, me too. I thank you so much for just giving me an opportunity to share my story and I mean, really, just giving me that opportunity. That's just truly a blessing, honestly, because I feel like when you're kind of like, I don't aspire to be an influencer. That's not my job. Like, that's not my calling in life. And so, being able to give other women platforms to share their stories, I think that's just really special. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and I really love it. I'm enjoying it a lot. Thank you very much for listening until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, share the videos, posts, anything and everything, and blast this throughout the world. I love you. Bye.